Hey guys, welcome to another episode. I am your private money lender, Joel Cadlick, and with me today is an amazing operator, our guest, Ben Lee. We cannot wait to jump into this episode, guys. We're going to have a lot of fun understanding who Ben is, what he does, and what makes him such a good operator. Guys, and one thing I want to point out in this episode that we're going to go over that is super, super important is Ben is doing this virtually, meaning he invests currently in Tulsa, but he lives in California. And, how the heck does he do that? And what does that look like for him? So really just excited to have you on, Ben, excited to learn from you, and definitely something that can be super value add to the audience. So, hey man, how you doing?
Thanks, Joel. It's good to be here. Doing well. I'm honored to be part of this podcast and excited to get going.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So on this podcast, we go straight for the meat and potatoes. We get right to it, and we always try to provide the audience with nice actionable items, things they can implement today. So just like we do in every episode, we're just going to jump right into it. So, man, a couple of questions for you just to kind of kick this thing off is, how do you find and analyze deals in the market you don't live in? Like, how does that work? Like, what does that look like for you?
Uh, Lots and lots of repetition. I think I've analyzed thousands of deals in the course of a few months. And so how do you get good at it? Well, there's so many ways to analyze the deal, but it isn't until you actually execute it that you actually know whether or not you analyzed it well. And so there's a couple of safeguards that you have in place. Let's say you analyze a deal and then you talk to perhaps a friend or a coach, a fellow investor at a meetup or wherever else. And you have them try to run through the numbers with you. It's like, hey, here are the pictures. Here's the notes I took on the walkthrough. Here's all the details I have about the property. Can you help me? Right. And it really boils down to three things when you're analyzing a deal. The first is, how much is the house going to be worth when you're all done fixing it up? Right. And then you can have a standard for how you want to fix up a home. And then from that, can you find comps? Right, through the MLS, through Zillow, through Redfin, whatever resource you have, how much will this home be worth? So that's the first step of analyzing the deal. The second part is, how much rehab is it going to take to get to where I want it to be, to that ARV? And so take the current condition of the house and then say, well, it's going to take, new flooring, new paint, a new AC unit, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's probably the part that complicates most people, but that's the second part. And then the third part is, what is my holding cost, profit margin, all of that stuff to dictate what I want to buy this property at. And so I think there's three steps to the analysis for properties, and you won't really know how well you did on it until you actually executed it a couple times, right? And then
that's
soon
the key.
you start to get a better feel for how similar this project is to perhaps another project that you did. But when you're starting out, a lot of it is relying on, I guess, other people or that self-confidence just to go through with it and do it. And then you always have to prove to yourself that your numbers are right.
Yeah, I think, Ben, you said something really interesting when you first started answering the question, is volume and reps and an extra set of eyes to, help protect your downside. And that to me is applicable whether you're, in state, boots on the ground, in the market, or virtual. Is like, who can you go to that you can trust to help you? Because it is so critically important. Like you said, is like, you can get all those reps in, you can analyze all the deals, and you can ask your mentor or a friend or another real estate agent for this extra set of eyes. But getting over that hump of execution is a whole nother ball game. So like, how did you do that? Like, I know you said you've had a lot of reps and you looked at a lot of deals, but man, especially for you, I think it would be super helpful just to know, because right, no excuses, guys. If you're in Tulsa, then you should be able to execute if he's a million miles away. So like, how did you do that, man? Like, how did you overcome that? Because that's a serious and real challenge, and it's good not to overlook that.
Yeah, it gets a little bit into my journey, right? So I started investing out of state. The first project was a long time ago in Broken Arrow, right? So I was working my W-2, and my wife's cousin lives in Broken Arrow. And he said,
so
hey,
immediate connection.
Yeah, there's a connection that I trust, right? Very important. And so he said, hey, there's a single family home. I want to do a flip on it. Would you like to be my money partner? Right. And so I said, oh yeah, what does that entail? It's like, oh, you just pay for the house and the rehab. The house is in my name, right? He's going to manage the rehab, and then we're just going to sell it and split the profits 50-50. And I'm not paying any additional fees on his side. And on
Okay.
like when we're selling it, he's also a licensed realtor. We're going to save on that end. And I said, okay, let's do it. And so that's kind of how it started, right? The first purchase. I didn't know too many details, but he would send me progress reports, updates, and whatnot. When it came time to sell it, I said, hey, instead of selling it, can I just buy out your portion and
Mm.
I'll burn? And he said, no problem. So I bought out his half of it. I refinanced it. And then I said, where's my next project? Right. And so I was
Awesome.
very
Love it.
hands off on the first one. And it was almost spoon fed to me in terms of where the numbers of the deal landed. But it helped me to at least get a little bit of experience buying a house out of state, understanding what was going on during the construction out of state, and how to start, I guess, managing a rental out of state.
Yeah, I love it,
Sorry if you
man.
hear meowing at my cat is,
Yeah, yeah, the cat is part of the guest on the pod,
yes,
so
there we go.
happy to have your cat on here. But it's funny, right? Because it really, the principles are the principles are the principles. So like we were saying, getting reps, getting an extra set of eyes, having somebody you trust, making sure it's a good deal, being able to shadow somebody while they're doing a project. Like my story is very similar to yours, Ben, but I just was here, and my first two flips, I'm still a good friend of mine today. And I trusted mentor. We connected at the local Tulsa area, and he was doing a lot of flips, and it's something I was interested in doing. So I brought him a couple of deals and say, hey, if I bring the deals, can I share in the profits with you? But I also want to like watch you do what you do and walk with the crews and see what it's all about. So, there's obviously some differences there, but there's some very key similarities in those stories. Of course, the best part of the story is doing a deal with a private money person that you trust. I'm all about that, baby.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess I want to emphasize the relationship aspect of it, right? We didn't do it
Mm,
alone. Our first deal,
right.
there's such a steep learning curve, and perhaps it's easier for us after we've gotten so much volume under our belt. But I won't forget all the uncertainty, all the unknown terminology. You don't know how long a rehab's supposed to take. You don't know if you're actually getting a good deal on the construction or the rehab or not. And you really rely on, you're leaning on someone else's shoulders as they take the front end of it. And you're hoping that you can provide value in whatever way, whether that be on the lending side or bringing a deal or a great attitude and a can do, I like to hang
Right.
around this person type of attitude even. Yeah.
Yeah, and just speaking of when you're talking about volume, if you don't mind, just for a perspective for the audience, like what kind of volume are you looking at doing or are currently doing, or what does that look like for you as far as your flipping operation, your machine?
Yeah. So we pivoted to flips. You're absolutely right. In this current time, we're probably buying about 5 to 10 homes a month.
Okay.
I'm currently managing about 10 to 15 active projects. They're all in the phase of just starting rehab or in the thick of it, or just like punch out list and then listing it. So hoping to do about 100 flips this year.
Damn.
No wholesales. Yeah, just flips. And
Okay.
it's once again, I'm leaning on the shoulders of all these great people who can do great things. And I'd say my forte is understanding when a deal's a deal and setting up systems so that people can perform to the best of their extent. But once again, because I'm remote, I'm not the one hammering in the nails or laying down tile, right? It's other
Right.
people. And so I have to make sure that these other people are very well set for success.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that that is some serious volume, man. That is huge. So if you are at all looking at doing flipping, I'm speaking to the audience, or looking to scale, like definitely be paying attention here, dropping a lot of gold nuggets. But Ben, I want to go back to what you said, a couple of things. Um, your forte is like you have a gift for knowing when a deal is a deal. A lot of that comes from going back to when we were originally talking about, is just getting those reps, right? You had to get that practice in. You had to shoot that free throw, 100,000 times to really get it nailed down. But like, What does that look like for you now? What makes a deal worth pursuing? Like, what are the metrics? What are the gut instincts? What sticks out to you? Because I get this question a lot. Is one, I really struggle with estimating my rehab costs, and I'm a little nervous about, overestimating or underestimating, and then I just simply don't know if it's a deal or not. So like, what what could you say to that would be helpful?
I'd say there's two different camps, right? There's the people who have not done it before
Mhm.
and the people who have. And so for the people who have not done it before, it's really tricky because you got to prove to yourself that you can do it. You can have a great deal in front of
Right.
you, but still be so scared to execute because what if my numbers are wrong? And you kind of need to just go for it. If there's so much padding,
Right.
you can't possibly comprehend why this deal would not be good, then you just go for it, right? And if you can't do it by yourself, you find someone who really knows and like just bring them in with you for moral support and go for it. Okay, so that will almost establish a baseline
Right.
for you
Yeah.
as to whether or not a good deal is a good deal. And let's say you're hoping to make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on it, and then you only made $10,000. Oh, well, you can kind of re-baseline based on what you learned. But if you're only expecting to make 30,000 and you made $100,000 on it, man, like you get to re-baseline what you learned.
Yeah.
And
Ring
if
the
you hit
bell.
your metric right there, then you're like, oh, I think I got the system down and I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing right now. So I'd say that's for the people who haven't done it. For the people who have done it, I would say it's really finding your particular product that yields you the return you want to see in
Mm.
terms of how much work is put in, how much return you're getting on your money, how your resources are allocated. So I think after flipping, low end homes, mid range homes, high end homes, I like more of the builder grade, lower end scale. Just because when you factor in time, resource allocation, everything, your profit margin per deal is higher on, let's say, a cheaper flip than on a more expensive flip. Just because your buyer pool is larger for, a lower end home. And I'm not saying lower end as in a crappy finish. I'm talking just a smaller home, right? And then, whereas the giant mansions, your buyer pool is so small. These new builds, you're looking at $800,000 homes. Not
Right.
many people are looking for
Right.
those. And
Right.
so it could be on the market for 6 months and you're paying all the holding costs for that. You're paying all the, utilities, insurance, all the financing costs. Whereas the small homes, oh, you list it on the market. It's a beautiful home in the neighborhood that everyone wants to be in, that people can afford. You sell it in 3 days. And
Yeah. 100%.
so I think for the analysis side, you focus on what your forte is, what makes you really excited and passionate, and you hone in on that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. On one side of it, you gotta get a little dirty, you gotta go for it, and there's never going to be a deal that's 100% risk-free. Investing has risk. That's just a part of it. But calculated risk, right, is what we're talking about. And then the other camp, like you were saying, Ben, if I'm summarizing correctly, is from the experience, even more calculated because now you have your buy box. You know exactly what you're looking for, what that product looks like, and what that exit looks like because the data is telling you how that has performed many different times. And maybe you've played in some higher end or mid grade or lower end, but there's a certain niche that you're falling into that you can just look at it and know, hey, that's a deal. I've done this a million times, rinse repeat. That can look different for other folks. It doesn't have to be necessarily the lower end or the mid grade. It could be higher end. I would agree. The buyer pool is a big significant thing right now, especially because of interest rates. You want to flip the property that has the biggest buyer pool because that's the most eyeballs and you're going to have the best chances of selling that property quickly. I did want to define the one thing. When you say lower end, can you help? Are you talking about, so we all kind of know or most of us know it's like the 1,500 to 2,500 square foot home, uh, you know, $250,000 maybe ARV-ish. Are you talking going just a bit under that, or are you right there in the middle, or what does that look like for you when you say like a little bit lower end?
A bit under that, right? So I
Okay.
think when you take a house into consideration and that you're going to flip, the size of the house greatly determines your cost, right? If you're there's a direct correlation between, the cost of laying flooring for a small home versus a big home. It's square footage.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with paint. Same thing with a roof, right? There's the fixed expenses that relatively fixed, right? Like let's say
Right.
your kitchen appliances, your water heater, your HVAC unit. Of course, for a bigger home, the system kind of scales, but it's not one-to-one direct with the rehab of a home in terms of like the flooring and the paint and whatnot. And that's a large
Right.
expense. And that's what a lot of people steer to when you're trying to fix a house, right? You want new flooring, you want new paint, you want new lighting. And so we try to target smaller homes in nice neighborhoods. And so the cost of the rehab is not too much higher, right? If I were to do new floor and new paint in a smaller home in a rough neighborhood versus the same size home in a nicer neighborhood, my cost of rehab is the same. But the value of
Right.
improvement that I can see in the nicer neighborhood is vastly greater. And so, like when I say a lower end home, we're not saying it's low end by any means. It's just smaller, cheaper to rehab, and the price point in which we can sell it is like under $250,000. I would even venture to say, I'm liking it when we can sell it for under $200,000. And
Sure.
then it brings a level of affordability for a vast number of buyers.
Yeah. And I think, again, going back to the buy box with that, what you're saying, Ben, is when you know what you know, your product, right? It's easier to see that deal, but you also know the numbers, right? If I put $10 in on this property, same square footage, but a different location in the worst area, am I going to get $20 back out, or am I going to get $15 back out, or I'm just going to break even and get $10 back? Obviously, this is a silly example, but $10, but yeah, that's 100% accurate.
It's
That's
a
a good
great
perspective,
example.
man.
It's a great example because that's like, well, you can shrink it all down, right? At the end of the day, how much return is your dollar bringing you? So
Right.
I love it when we can break down these big numbers into like small numbers, because that's what it is. A bunch of these small numbers, just add a zero, add a
Add it
zero,
up.
right?
And man, you are great at keeping track of the numbers. So I think that's what makes you a really good operator too, is you know where things are being spent and how they're being spent. And again, that's just tracking, guys. And that's like super, 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 super important. And that helps protect your downside and helps protect your risk. So so you threw out some big numbers, Ben, all right? As far as doing, 100 flips and 5 to 10 deals a month and managing 15 or so projects. How do you balance, for somebody who is doing more volume, how do you balance scaling your business with staying profitable? Because obviously, as you grow, is expenses and everything like that. It just depends on the seasonality of the business. But like, how are you balancing scale with profitability?
So there is you can break down the company expenditures into two basic categories, right? There's
Okay.
just the expenses that are tied to your project and the overhead. And so the project kind of stands for itself. If you were to do a single flip, right? How much money am I going to spend on this project? And just make sure I have that, purchase plus spend is my total cost of acquisition. You hope to sell it for like that much, and then that's how much you can take home. All right. And so like just tracking this expense, that's through the receipts, through good bookkeeping and whatnot. And you just want to make sure your rehab budget is on track, in terms of your schedule, the material spend, not over improving the home, but sticking to the original scope of what you had envisioned to match
Right.
your ARV. On the overhead side of things, that's where it gets interesting, because currently in the process of trying to systematize a little bit more, right?
Right.
And
Right.
what that means is right now I'm pretty active analyzing all the deals. I'm doing all the bookkeeping myself, helping out on a lot of administrative tasks on the back end. And yeah, it eats
Sure.
up a lot of my time. And to the point where I am spending a lot of time doing this back admin work. And can I see a greater return on my time if I were freed of doing this? There's a ton of books out
Uh,
there about scaling, like letting go, who not how, 10x is easier than 2x, buy back your time, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
And so the idea is, can I find greater purpose in expanding my business for more revenue generation if I were to hire out what I'm currently doing. And on that note, your overhead expense is going to be hiring out that task. And I'm going to try to use my time to generate additional income sources. So that's the gist of it. I'm in the process of it, so I can't
Yeah,
tell you,
that's
hey, here's
beautiful.
exactly how it went, but it's
Well,
scary.
we'll have you on again and you'll tell us exactly how awesome it went. But like honestly, what I hear as well, Ben, is when you're in this process, when you're in the process of like building the business and growing the business, that might be a better way of saying it than scaling. Scaling, that word can be misunderstood sometimes. But growing the business is as you're in that stage, your business has to earn the right and the privilege to be able to take on more overhead. And it sounds like
That's
that's
so
what you're
good.
looking at, right? So like if your business hasn't earned that privilege to hire somebody or take on, fancy software or whatever, then don't force that because the business ultimately is going to reject that. So it kind of sounds like that's an area of where you're at, but I think that's true for most businesses. I'm just going to say you can take that to the bank.
That's so well said, Joel. That's so good.
Yeah. Well, mentor of mine told me that too.
I love it.
Oh, cool. So, okay, again, a lot of deals, and I think this would be super interesting for the audience. Is like, so there's a lot of deals, there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of reps that you're getting in. So we're talking about volume a little bit. Like, where are these leads coming from? That's the biggest questions. Like, where do I even get leads? Like, you don't have to show us, to tell us all your little secrets, but like, how are you getting in front of opportunities?
Um, Wholesalers mostly.
Okay.
90% of all my deals are wholesalers driving for dollars. When we're going to an existing project, you see a house that's dilapidated. You're fixing
Bam.
a house across the street. There's another one. It's like, oh boy, it'd be great if we could take that one too. You just go and ring the doorbell and see if they're interested, right? So tiny bits of direct to seller, tiny bits of driving for dollars, but the majority of it is through wholesalers. And I know you've had a couple podcasts already on the mindset of a wholesaler and what they're looking for, and you just want to be that person to them. You
Mm,
wholesaled, you built your wholesaling business as well, so I don't
yeah.
need to get too much into that, and perhaps I'm not even qualified to speak on that. But yeah,
Trust me,
like
brother, you are.
yeah, we bought so many deals, probably 25 deals in 6 months from wholesalers. And, when the
25
wholesalers make good
deals in the
money,
last 6 months.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
from
now keep going.
wholesalers, we bought a little bit more than that, but most of it's from wholesalers. And, when they make good money, you celebrate with them, because you were fed a good deal and there's no trying to squeeze them dry or I can't believe you're making so much money on this lead. Like they brought you an opportunity. You can both profit from it and everyone's happy. So we celebrate the wins together and we keep them up to date on our projects. It's like they're part of our journey as well. And it's about a relationship at the end of the day, right? They'll continue to get you more deals where they're profitable and they enjoy working with you. And you like working with them and you get the projects, get to do more flips, build your confidence, make more money.
Bam, man, that is so good. I would ring the bell, but I've been told that it doesn't pick up on the microphone anymore. I'm virtually ringing the bell. That was so, so good. And man, that's so true. Yes, relationships matter so much. And it's not just about, hey, what can so and so do for me? It's like, hey, what could we do together if we create a repeatable process? I mean, the podcast name is Fun Flip Repeat. It's like, how do we keep this going and repeat? And I think that's so, so key. But I'm so glad that you shared that because I do have a lot of conversations of, where are the deals? Wholesaling is dead or, it's just too difficult. But that is a lot of deals, 25 deals in 6 months, primarily from wholesalers. So guys, if you hear anything, just hear that. And some of that just might be a mindset thing, but that's something we address here on the podcast as well. So with that said, what's one mindset shift that's helped you succeed in real estate? There's just so many of them, I think. And I also don't want to ask this like super generically because sometimes mindset stuff can be like, a little redundant and boring, but like what something was like an aha moment for you if you have one to share?
There's so many. For the people who are already doing this, much more than I am and whatnot, I'm sure you have a lot of insight around it too. But for people who are trying to get started, uh, I'll share a story first if we have the time.
Yeah, man. Great. Love the stories.
Someone told me that, hey, if you find a great deal, the money's just gonna come. Don't worry about it. Like just find the deal. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm gonna find these deals. And so I
Yeah.
hit the phones, I talked to all the wholesalers I can. And then I was told every time you analyze a deal, you make the offer. Because it doesn't matter what the original asking is, you just get your reps in. You know at what price you need to buy it for in order for it to make sense, right? And so
Yep.
I'm throwing out offers, and maybe in 100 offers, I bought 6 homes in 6 weeks. I'd never done it before, right?
Yeah.
And here I am, like, oh boy, we're starting project one,
Yeah.
we're starting project two,
Oh,
we're
man.
starting project three. My funds are dried up,
Yeah.
I'm having a complete nervous breakdown. I'm like, what if it doesn't work?
Mm,
What if something
right.
goes wrong? Did I make a giant mistake? I have to stop. I can't do this. Right. And I remember calling one of my mentors. I was like, hey, can I just talk to you? He's like, yeah, what's up? I was like, I need to talk to someone who's done this. Are you supposed to feel this way? What am I doing wrong?
Right.
Why is everything like falling apart? And then so we hashed out, the process that I followed, making the offers on these homes, knowing I bought them at a good price, knowing that if I
Yeah.
sold
Key.
them, they'd be good. But
Right.
I'm just so uneasy this entire time, right? Because I'm looking at my bank account and it's so low, right? And then I was all in on this. I'm not telling you to do this, but I sold all my, like, got rid of all my stocks, poured it into real estate, got rid of my
Tuck it
retirement
all in.
accounts, poured it into real estate just to keep these deals funded. And I remember, I know they're good deals. I know, but
Right.
I'm just so scared. Right.
Sure.
And I remember my mentor, after hearing all this, he said, Ben, I think you just have to prove it to yourself,
Mm,
that you did it. Like, how many of these homes have you completed and sold? I said, well, none, right? None yet. And he
right.
said, yeah, just, go through a project, see how the numbers did, and you just have to prove it to yourself. And I said, okay, like,
Interesting.
kind of taking those words, can I prove it to myself? And, the first deal we sold 3 days on the MLS. The second home we sold a week on the MLS. The third deal we sold pre-MLS. The fourth deal we sold a
Wow.
week. And it's like, well, if someone told me that it would take a week to sell, I would have been a lot less scared, right? And if someone told me, oh, no matter what, you're going to hit your budget, I would have been a lot less scared. But I had never done it before. And there were just all these unknowns that are weighing on me as, like, my bank account was dwindling.
Mm,
So the fear was very paralyzing. That long story just to say, a mindset shift that I've had is to believe in myself.
wow. Bam.
Like,
Yeah, that's huge. It's absolutely huge.
yeah, I bet everything on myself, and it's still scary sometimes. But now, instead of it being paralyzing, it's kind of fun. Just knowing, like, seeing some fruit from the work, that you've been investing in has yielded, and you're able to take that. You can feed your family. You can
Yeah.
reinvest
Put
it.
food on the
You,
table. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
believe, like, almost, you know, over leveraging, believing in yourself that you can do it if you commit to it.
Man, I love that. That is so, so good. And I want to say something about that too is, you mentioned the conversation you had with a mentor. And we've talked about relationship a lot on this episode. And we've talked about like having an extra set of eyes or somebody you know and trust, boots on the ground because you are doing this virtually is having somebody you can borrow like their confidence as well, like a mentor who believes in you more than you believe in yourself, because maybe they've already gone out there and do it is so,
So
so
good.
good. So yeah, so you want to be able to make those connections because that is a hard thing to get over. So maybe you need to borrow someone else's confidence and then have that mentor say, listen, I believe in you. And Ben, obviously you do everything big. So you didn't just get one house to see if you could do it. You went out there and got like 6 of them. So that's not necessarily what we recommend, but man, I absolutely love it.
You just threw out the offers, right? And I didn't want to be
Yeah.
the guy that said, "Oh, I back out because yeah, we agreed on the price, but I'm scared." Right? Like he threw out the offers, and then they got accepted, and so here we go.
I absolutely love it. All right. Well, before I let you go, I got to know for those who are watching, so this might be audio for somebody, but for those of you who are watching, what's the whole triangle collage on your backdrop there?
This, my son was trying to draw trees,
Okay, I love it.
and so he just drew a bunch of trees.
I
I
love
was like,
it.
"All right,
That's
good
what I
job."
thought, but had to call
He
it
just
out. That looks hilarious.
he just turned 4, so yeah, I
That's good,
kept
man.
him.
I love it. Okay. Well, yeah, guys, thank you so much. This was awesome. Ben, thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy. Really, really, really appreciate it. It's super fun to know about your journey, to participate in the journey with you in different ways. And guys, just remember we have a live in-person meetup 4th Tuesday of every month. So please join that. And if you find value at all in anything that this podcast produces, please like, share, subscribe, download, whatever you do. Really, really helps out. Ben, any last parting words before we hop?
It's such an honor to hang out with you, get interviewed on this podcast. And you guys are crushing it too. You guys are big mentors and like people I can rely on as well. So thank you so much for being along with me on this crazy journey. And yeah, couldn't do it without you. Actually, couldn't do it without you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. All right, guys, take it easy. Ben, God bless. Bye.